Hey everyone, and welcome back to another movie review with me, your host, as ever, Peppermint, joined by my wife, the Obsidian Nook Petal ASMR. She's currently got a mouthful of biscuit. You're welcome. Alright, I spared some details. But anyway, welcome back, or, well, welcome if you're not. No. No. Nobody watches these anyway. Anyway, just kidding. Today we are covering what I initially thought was going to be our first biopic, but after the founder is our second biopic. We are covering the film adaptation of one of the craziest stories you will ever hear to come out of an English prison. This is going to be a bit difficult considering it's a biopic and it talks a lot about the real life of Charles Bronson. So a lot of the stuff I talk about will be just being like facts about his life. We can't go into the full details of everything that happened in his story, like his real story I should say. But he's in his 70s and possibly 80s now, I can't remember. And he's still in prison and they won't let him out because of how mad he is. Just Google his story, it's absolutely insane. Pardon me. If you want a film with a little bit of aged information, then watch Bronson, which you can watch on Netflix. So this film was directed by a chap named Nicholas Winding Refn. Don't know how to pronounce that. And it was also written by him and a chap named Brock Norman Brock. Interesting names. This film, we did a little bit of research, and Charles Bronson was eventually, I think, allowed to watch this, but he's basically said, oh, if my mother likes it, then I like it, basically, and she did end up liking it. She really enjoyed Tom Hardy's performance. And this is one of those films, Tom Hardy does great stuff, he's really good. This is one of them films where he goes full fucking off the rails, as you'll find out. So, Charles Bronson, who I will refer to as Bronson for most of this, I won't bother saying his original birth name, which is Michael Peterson, who is played by the magnificent Tom Hardy. You can count everyone knows Tom Hardy. He places in a solitary cell, exercising and boxing while completely nude. As you mentioned, the sheer amount of dong in this film is way too much. Like, Tom Hardy he's fucking built like a brick shithouse. He put a lot of muscle on for this film. But he just is completely naked for the majority of this film. Like, full dong, full man-ass, all of that. It's a bit much for me, but there you go. Some guards arrive to move him, but he rushes the group and fights them before being detained. Again, I can't go into details, but fighting guards, taking hostages is like part and parcel for him. Bronson narrates his childhood where he was aggressive and violent, and young adult life where he was constantly being visited by police. Eventually he married his girlfriend Irene, played by Kelly Adams, and had a child. He eventually robbed a post office and was sentenced to 7 years in jail. Or to quote his mother, "You'll be out in 4." And this was what, 70s or 60s, and he's still in jail. You'll find out a little bit of the information. Suddenly appearing in clown makeup, the movie reveals he is speaking to a theatre audience. This is weird. This bit I don't entirely get, like the whole theatre audience segments. But I guess it's kind of based off of his like psyche or something. I don't know. I don't know the full analysis of it. In prison, Bronson just repeatedly paces his cell as he narrates how he enjoys prison, much unlike other convicts, seeing it as like a hotel. After refusing to work, some guards come to berate him, so he attacks them, only to get sent to a solitary confinement cell. While making tea, he is visited by an eccentric prisoner named Paul Daniels, who is played by Matt King. If you are into English pop culture, you will know him as Super Hans from Peep Show, who takes a cup of tea before leaving. Speaking to the audience, he tells them of his disgust at his parole hearing coming up before he has built a reputation. Yeah, he just wants to be in prison. Telling them of his love of prison as a montage of his violent attacks and chaos that further extended his sentence, eventually landing him in a high security cell. Now, I'll probably mention it later on. He's taken hostages, he's caused riots, but as I said to you, he has never killed a single person, which is impressive considering his track record of being mad. Eventually he was sent to a mental hospital where a patient shits into his own hand before smearing it onto his face. That was disgusting. Did not remember that from the first time I watched this, but it focuses on him scooping shit out of his own arse and then smearing it on his face. Yeah, just as Amelia was enjoying her biscuit, a chocolate cakey biscuit thing. Yeah, finish that later once we've finished this. Yeah, lovely, innit? Bronson continues his chaotic antics, assaulting staff and being locked away in a cell. In his cell, two orderlies explain the rules of the hospital and order to take him pills, which he of course refuses, causing them to leave. They soon return with more of them, overpowering him and injecting him, knocking him out. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of him just going fuck off and then getting the shit kicked out of him. He swears a lot. He calls people cunt a lot. In a room full of other patients, he is in a vegetative state where he is visited by another patient named John White, played by Joe Tucker. John tells him he is a convicted paedophile and that the two of them are one of the same. Lovely. It's pleasant. Pleasant subject matter. Sometime later, the patients have a disco, so Bronson, having partially recovered, tries to make a run for it, but is caught and told to return to the bar. Eventually grows sick of the hospital and attempts to strangle John, which gets him sent back to prison. Lovely. Just gonna say based for trying to strangle. I mean, that's a joke. It's a joke. It's not based to try and strangle a pedophile. Wink, wink. Anyway. Speaking to the audience again, he reenacts with himself how he was not going to be returned to prison, but was moved to Broadmoor. Broadmoor is infamous in its own right, so that's a whole other story. He describes how he has spent 26 years in solitary confinement without killing a single person, as I mentioned earlier, before playing footage of his chaos at Broadmoor, causing millions of pounds of damage. There's footage online which you really should look up. Sorry, I'm just texting Woogie, kind of. The government eventually certified Bronson as sane, releasing him from custody, which of course he despised. Outside of prison, he reunites with his parents before returning to their new home they moved into since he was put in jail. His mother, played by Amanda Burton, sits with him and he is upset at how not all of his personal belongings were moved with him from Luton. Bronson boards a train to go back to Luton to visit his uncle. Bronson arrives at where his Uncle Jack, played by Hugh Ross, invites him into a room filled with women and transvestites. His moustache is insulted by a woman named Alison, played by Juliet Oldfield, but Jack defends it and compliments it. I don't know how true this is, but according to Wikipedia, which means it's probably fake, Charles Bronson actually shaved off his moustache for Tom Hardy to use as a prop. So, if he's actually got that on his face, that's impressive. So yeah, Jack defends it and compliments it. And Jack invites him to stay, much to the delight of Jack's guests. Learning from Jack, he meets with his old friend Paul, back from the prison with a T, where he dubs him with his name Charles Bronson, after the actor. Sometime later, Alison becomes infatuated with Bronson's many scars and his physique before kissing him. Under Paul's watch, Bronson participates in several bare-knuckle fights, beating one man and then pissing over him, lovely, earning only £20, much to his disappointment. Over time, he began to gain a reputation for his skills, even fighting several dogs. I don't know how much of this is dramatised, but if this is true, that would make sense for him. One day, Bronson declares his love for Allison, but she turns him down due to having a boyfriend. So even though they've been having lots of smeggies, she's taken by another man. Bronson visits a jewellery store, assaulting the staff and stealing a £1,000 ring to propose with, but she tells him she's marrying the other man. Which is brave considering he's fucking crazy. Soon after, he is arrested for the robbery and returned back to prison, much to his delight, of course. Meeting with the prison governor, played by Jonathan Phillips, he is told he was only released for 69 days. Haha, sex number. Comedy. One day in the cell, he is visited by a friendly guard named Andy, played by Mark Powley, which is never a good idea. Don't be friends with a lunatic like Charles Bronson, who he immediately traps in his cell with him before calling out to the other guards. Shortly after, another guard passes him a phone where the governor asks what he wants in exchange. When the governor doesn't prove helpful, Bronson strips naked, again, more man-ass and bare penis. Hairy penis. Guards forced... Oh, hang on. Bronson strips naked before greasing his body up with Andy's reluctant help. Lots of shouting, lots of use of the word cunt. Guards force their way in and apprehend Bronson, getting him restrained and returned back to solitary. The governor explains to him he will be punished but offers to make a deal, but Bronson simply tells him to fuck off. Lots of that. Bronson eventually takes up art as a hobby, impressing the teacher Phil, played by James Lance, which prompts Bronson to make fun of him but take his advice to make more art. Now, as we discovered, his art is going for thousands of pounds on the internet, despite being pretty shit, but because of his infamy, that is mainly the appeal of why people would want to spend that much money. Along with Phil, he meets with the governor, who advises him to continue with his art and requests to see some of it, while explaining the art classes will be stopped. I lost it. Back in the art room, Phil tries to make friendly conversation with him. Again, don't be friends with a prisoner like him. But a furious Bronson takes him hostage. After being applauded by his made-up audience, it's shown he's again stripped naked and painted his body black. The governor tries to negotiate with Bronson, asking for music or he would kill Phil, so he complies. Having decorated the room with his art, he also turns Phil into a living piece, painting his face and tying him to a pole. As the music stops, he orders the guards to come in and get them, fighting them off, and the film ends with a bloody Bronson in a cage that only fits him standing up. And there we are. Apologies that it was mainly just me talking. Amelia was eating and then also said while we were watching this that she doesn't know what she can really say. Just to confirm you are here, why don't you say something? I don't even think that picked up. She is here, she was part of this conversation, don't worry. But she was eating and then when she... It's fucked up, it's a very fucked up, based on a true story sort of thing. But yeah, it's worth watching this film just for Tom Hardy being absolutely fucking crazy. Because he goes off on one, and that's why I love him. And apparently, Charles Bronson even said to Tom Hardy that he is more like himself than he is. Which is crazy, but Tom Hardy does a great job. The supporting cast is very limited, but I think they still did a good job. This film was made on not a lot of money, but the amount of like prison and mental hospital scenes was impressive. But yeah, it's worth watching. It's on Netflix. Just watch it for fucking Tom Hardy going off on one. Just to warn it, I've warned you already. Lots of man ass, lots of penises, lots of the use of the word cunt. So, anyway, I've been your host, as ever. Thank you ever so much for listening. I've been joined once more by the wife, the Obsidian Nook, the Petal ASMR. Anything else you want to say before we leave it? No. So yeah, thank you ever so much for listening, and we'll see you again soon. Oh, because it's going to be time for Prime. Because, excuse me, Netflix has now run out, and it was not worth paying the money for because there's fuck all on there. But anyway, we'll see you in a little while. I don't know how long. Don't know when we're getting it. But we'll see you soon for some Prime. See ya.